Hello and welcome to Maski Media Learning with Maski TV and Teacher Tandy once more. I hope you guys are very happy to be here today. Just cleaning my voice so that we can continue together. So I am going to now start on statistics, which is a part of the paper 2. So when you're writing your examination, you will see that in the paper 2, first question is going to be statistics. But the main reason of us doing the statistics today is because it's part of your term 3 work that you are going to do, or that's what you are doing currently with your teachers. So stay tuned and let's do it together. What are the key areas and the key focus of what we are looking for? Here we need to remember that we have measure of central tendency. These are very important, which is our 3 M's: mean, median, and mode. Again, we have the measure of dispersion, which is just helping us to see the wideness of the data that we are given, or the narrowest of the data that we are given, right? We use percentile, quantiles, interquartile range, and semi-interquartile range. We do have something that always comes to us, which is 5 number summaries. That is just a summary of our data using just 5 numbers, and it can be represented in a box and whisker diagram. That is minimum, a quantile 1, and a median, which we usually call it quantile 2, and also Q3, which is our upper quantile or quantile 3, and then a maximum value of the data. But for us to get this right, we always have to arrange our data from the smallest to the biggest, which is called ascending order. We need to be able to interpret whatever statistical summary that we are given, as well as the histogram, in addition to our box and whisker diagram. So stay tuned and let's work this together. Just a quick summary of what you need to know. Remember that we have a grouped and ungrouped data. So ungrouped data is when you just have numbers individually like that, but then grouped data is when you have it with intervals, right? So that is what we're talking about here. And then we do have graphs, as we have indicated. Also, you need to know if the shape is skewed to the right or skewed to the left, or it's actually symmetrical. So when we have this, for example, the skewness just means that where is the data more and where is the data less. For example, you can say that your whisker had expanded in this one, which is we have here as an example, far to the far right than it is to the far left. So that is what we look at with the skewness. Then I gave an example of this 5 number summary with a box and whisker in it, also with the dispense that we are talking about, right? There is our minimum value, our Q1, Q2, Q3, and also the maximum value. All those 5, we call them 5 number summary. So that's why we are saying that. So they summarize it nicely on how the data are. But we can also have our interquartile range, which we get it when we're calculating using our quantiles. So interquartile range, for us to find it, we would have said that interquartile range is equal to the upper quartile, which is Q3, minus Q1, which is the lower quantile. Okay. How do we get the range then? Do you remember that? What is it that we do to get the range? Of course, we take a bigger number and then we subtract the smaller number, which is, in our case, a maximum number minus a minimum number. So a bigger number minus a minimum number, a smaller number. In this case, it would have been 28 minus 22, which then will give us a 6. So that's how you then calculate. But there is a very important formula that if you don't remember it, you might not be able to even get 1 mark out of statistics, which we don't want, right? And remember, you guys, you don't have formula sheets when you write examinations. So you need to always remember this formula off by heart. Which formula is that? We have the mean of the data set. So what is the mean? Practically, a mean is just like an average of many things that we add them together. If it's numbers in this case, or data, when we add the data, we then have our mean value. But for us to get the mean value, which we represent it as X with a head, we call this one the sum of all the X values. Hence, we write X I, and we divide that by the total number of all the data set. You can see here we said is the sum of values of the data set divided by the number of values in that same data set. So that is an example of how that is a formula of how you can calculate the mean. Okay, now let's see. Without wasting the time, which we don't really have, because remember, we are learning the maths. So in maths, we always don't have time, right? I'm very sure that is our teacher's slogan. No time, let's run. So let's do it like that. Using past papers, we have used 2017 and 2018 papers. So if you have them, you can actually just grab them and we see together. These papers are our final exam papers that were national. Right, you understand that after COVID, the papers were no longer national, so we went to the national one so that we can accommodate everybody in South Africa, since this is Maski TV for everyone in South Africa. While you are settling, and make sure that you get the question paper with you, or you get that screenshot together, make sure that you put everything needed. You put your papers, book, you put your anything that you need. If you need a calculator, please stay with your calculator. Everything you need at this point, you need to use it so that we can be able to run together. So please stay like that as I give you 2 minutes break to get there. See you now. Do this together, since we said we need to have everything, including your calculator, for you to calculate this properly. But we're going to just try to do it step by step. This first one here, you can see that it is ungrouped data. So we have many numbers that are given to us just like that. So let's read it together. The data below shows the number of laptops sold by 15 sales agents during the last financial year. So what is it important here is that the number of laptops they were sold by 15 sales. So with that, we always have to say, then that means that it is my N number, just by seeing that. So you just say that in the question one, what we are having there, we have N to be 15 right away. So we know that the number of data set that will be given there, or that is given to us, is actually 15. So we have analyzed our data. In normal cases, I will say before you can even do anything, try to order your numbers in ascending order. So start with the smallest until the biggest. That is the best way to answer this question, so that you're not going to stop somewhere else and say, what must I do? So you're going to order your numbers properly, and I'll show you on the next slide how it's ordered. And then after ordering it, you can then now read the question. Here they said, determine the median. How do we find the median? After ordering all our data set, for us to find the median, you can do it two ways. You can actually just count your numbers. They said we have 15 numbers. So after I've ordered my number like this, my numbers like that, I can just count them, right? I can just say, here I have 1, here I have 2, I have 3, I have 4, I have 5, I have 6, like that. So you can actually just order them in this manner. Let's order them together. So here I have 5 and 6 and so on. So I can write 5 and 6 and 7. But what you do on as you move from the left, you also have to do as you move from the right. And you just say, I have 1, I have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Do you see, when I write from my left and my right both sides, I ended up with 7. But both of them, or all of these numbers, will then have one common number. In this case, our common number, it's going to be number 8. Can you see that? So our number 8 is therefore becoming a very common number which we need for us to be able to get to the solution. So this one is a common number for both of us. So what does that mean? It means that this is our median. That's our number in the middle. That is what you're going to do. But this works this way only if you have the numbers that are odd numbers like 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 15, and so on. So that is why this strategy works very well for us when we have the odd numbers. That you can just say, my median is therefore 54. But if I was not having the odd numbers, I had even numbers, which is like 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and so on, then I wouldn't have done it as seamlessly easy as this. What I would have done, therefore, is to take my two numbers and then I add them and I divide by 2. So say, for example, there was no 54 at all. For argument's sake, let's say 54 was not there and we were ending at 7, 7 in both sides. What will happen? We would have to then take our last numbers, which is our 7 numbers. In this side of our left, it will be 52, and on our right, it will be 58. We add them together and then we divide by 2. So that will be how we get to the answer. So what you're going to do there, you're going to add and you're going to have 110. You then divide it by 2. So that would have meant that your median will therefore be equals to 55. Right? So this is the other way of doing it. But unfortunately in this question, or fortunate enough in this question, we're given the odd numbers, which does not force us to go this way. So please bear that in mind. And every time you are practicing in maths, try to remember or try to use the point where, what if this was the question? Or what if this is how it was asked? How do I respond to it? Very, very important. Okay. So 1.2, they said calculate the range of the data. So we did say that calculating the range, literally you just have to have your numbers ordered properly, and then you just say range is equals to the maximum number minus the minimum number. That is what you do. And our maximum number there is 90, and then we subtract 34, for which it gives us 56. So that's what you would have done to calculate the range. Very, very easy and straightforward. Then they come and say, they now calculate the interquartile range. Now the interquartile range is something else that you can also calculate by counting, but you just have to create your skill for you to be able to read it like that. Remember, interquartile range, it is Q3 minus Q1 from our earlier slides, right? That is your interquartile range formula. So you need to know that, but then you must also use the same thing that you have. So you're going to use your numbers that you have, but when you use them, then you use looking at the values or the numbers that you already have, excluding the median. So that's how you go to the interquartile range. So how do you do that? You have already counted, so you're going to recount and you say, I have 1, 2, 3, and you move from the right, you have 1, 2, 3, but you see all of them, they are ending or landing at 4. So since they are all landing at 4, that means that my Q1 is therefore going to be equals to the number that is on 4, which is 46, right? So you're going to write your Q1 as 46. But then for you to find the upper quartile, which is Q3, you're going to do the same. Ignore the middle number, and then you just count. Then you say 1, 2, 3. You move 1, 2, 3. Then all of them are meeting at number 4, which in this case, number 4 is 73. This is one way of doing this, and if you have less data, it's easy to do it this way, right? Because you don't have to stress of many formulas that you might not be able to remember, and you struggle to understand what it is that you have to do. So if you say 73 minus 46, that will give us a 27, and that's how you answer the question. This is one way of doing this, but there is another way. There's always another way. So the other way is the one that you use the formula, which for where you are looking for the median, you're going to say a 1/2 multiplied by the number of values. So that's the half multiplied by the number of value plus 1. But that is actually a complex way of doing this, especially in grade 10. Suggestion is that if you can count, but if it forces you to use a formula, use a formula. Remember, you are not given a formula sheet when you are responding to your final examination. So you need to find a simpler way and a very easy way to get to the answer without you struggling. So you can practice this, or you can actually use the formulas as I said. Since this is a half, so you can use a half to determine the middle one. And then you can also use the other values which I'm about to show you. So this one is our half point, right? So if it's half, then you're going to use it that way. But then if it's, let's do this. Okay. So this is our half. We have our half there. And this one, so if this is half, what this is our 25%, which is the less than the half. So that is going to be, what is it? 3 divided by 4. Trying to get my pen writing properly there. That is 3 divided by 4. Let's see. It's not writing. Let's delete. Okay. So then what you do then, you would have cut it to say this is where my half is. So our half is here, right? This is our half. That's where you're going to say it is 50% if you are using percentages. And then here is our quarter, though you're going to use this as your 25%, which is going to be 1 divided by 4. And then here you're going to have your 73. It's going to be your 75%, which is then your 3 divided by 4, because this is actually divided by 4, right? So this is where our percentages are. So that is 25%, 50%, and 75%. You can use them, but what it does is it doesn't give you the answer. It gives you the position of where you're going to find the answer. In my opinion, it's literally just the same thing. So if you can count, please count. But when you can't count, then use this idea. Just remember that instead of 25%, you can actually use 1 divided by 4. And then here you can use a half. And then here you can use 3 divided by 4. So that is how it comes. But the half actually is coming from 2 divided by 4. So that's why we are calling it a half. So it's 1, 2, and then a 3. So if you have a loaf where you're cutting it like that, so that's how you get it this way, right? I hope you guys understood that. And I still am very strong to say that the better way might be that you just count, because it is giving you the correct number or the correct answer right away. More like when you are looking for the position, you have to come back to the solutions in that manner. Okay. So now we are asked to then draw the box and whisker. Our box and whisker is going to be drawn using the 5-number summary. So before you can even draw it, you have to just look here. So already we have some point of our 5-number summary. We have some point of our 5-number summary. We have our minimum. So what is our minimum value? Our minimum value, we have seen that in this, it's going to be equal to 34. And then we already have our Q1, which is what we just have used there. it's our 46. And then we have our median, which is the Q2. So our median, which we call it Q2, that is the number we got already is 54. And then we have our Q3, which is, we already have got that as well, is 73. Then we have our maximum value, which after we have done our ordering, we got that as 90. So can you see we now have our 5 number summaries. With this 5 number summary, what you need to just do is to draw a number line that have equal spaces in between. So it doesn't matter that I have 34, 46, 54, 73, and 90. I cannot just have those numbers in my number line. I need to also adhere to the distances in between the numbers on the number line to have equal space, right? So that is what you have to do here. So here they decided to start with 35, but you can see that before 35, there's some lines that have been drawn which accommodate our 34 here. You see that? So please, when you draw, you don't have to start from 0 or from negative, but whatever it is that you draw have to have equal distances, and then you just go and label. So you can see here, that is where our minimum value is, which is 34. This is where our Q1 is, which is, what is Q1? 46. And then our Q2, which is our median. So Q2 there is our median, which is 54. Right, that is our 54. And then we have our Q3, which is 73. You can see that is where it is. And then we have our maximum value, which is 90. So that is how they are actually doing it. So when you are writing, you are drawing your box and whisker, you just put a number line, make sure that the distances are equal, and then you just plot them. Remember, the minimum is just what you have as your first whisker, and then to go to the maximum is the first and last whisker. And inside you have your box. Your box is made up of Q1, Q2, and Q3. So very, very important. And at this point, we have taken it directly from your marking guideline, where even the ticks have been shown of what it is that they give marks for, right? So please bear in mind when you work with this kind of questions so that you don't make unnecessary mistakes that has been done throughout this space. Okay. Any question, please pop it on the chat as we are trying to get to the next part of the question where it is a little bit more exciting, and we want you to therefore relax as we go on, but we want you to understand the reasoning behind that. Recap. We just have gone through ungrouped data. When we come back right after break, we are going to start with the group data. Stay tuned. Welcome back, grade 10s. I'm very sure that we are ready to look at the grouped data. So I did explain earlier that when we say grouped data, we simply means that this data has been grouped. So it's not only one like what we have done, there's literally a group of it. So you can see the first question was about ungrouped data, and then the second question is therefore about grouped data. So we need to try and analyze that. As soon as you see temperature and frequency like that, and as soon as you see these values being intervals like 20, 24 with the less than and the greater than kind of issues, those are that just represent that we have grouped data on a plate, right? So Elena did a project on climate change at 2 o'clock each day, right? So 1400, that is 2 o'clock each day. She recorded the temperature in degrees Celsius for a certain town. The information is given in the frequency table below. So we have our frequency table here, and they say for how many days did the learner collected the data? How will you know how many days? That is the first question that you ask yourself. So they are saying that frequency. So you can see when you're frequently doing something, that means that you have done it in different days. On those days, that is going to be your number of days. So how many days? It simply means that you are going to just add your frequencies together to get to the answer. And that is how we have got to the solution of this one. So if you check here, we have come here and just given you the solution as it is. But for you to get to that solution, you need to have calculated it first, right? How do you calculate? You just come here and then you add, you add the values that are all in the column of the frequency. So you were going to just say 2 plus 4 plus 4 plus 9 plus 5 plus 7 plus 3. So if you add them together, they should be giving you 30 days. So then that's where you get your 1 mark. You just go there and say 30 days, and then you're going to get your mark just like that. Write down the model class for the data. Remember, mode simply means that data that appears many, many times or more than the other. So the data that is appearing more than the other in the grouped data will be the model class. We don't call it a mode like we would have done with the first one. So on the first one, we would have come and say, what is the mode? And the mode here will be, yes, of course, the mode here will then be 48, because 48 is the one that appears twice, right, as compared to the rest. So that will be the mode of this. So here we don't have an individual number. We then class it. Then that's why we are calling it a model class, not just a mode. So for you to get that, you just need to check where do we have more frequencies. So which number of frequency is more than the others. You can put the answer on the chart for which frequency is that, and that will be your answer. But we don't write the frequency, we write the interval, which in this case is the temperature. So write down the model class of the data will be our third one, which says that the temperature is greater or equals to 28, and at the same time it's less than 32. That will be your model class, right? Then they said estimate the mean of the data. To estimate the mean of the data, you would need to calculate the mean in the different format, which I'll show you quickly. But when you're calculating this mean, you cannot just go and say, I got the mean, I have the answer, and let's go. You have frequencies which represent the different things. And you have a temperature will also represent a different thing. You don't know exactly which one is your temperature. So one, you need to sort that part out, because this mean is impacted by the temperatures, which is interval. So how do we get that? You need to first find your points of the temperature, or the midpoint of your temperature. How are we getting, or how do we get the midpoint of the temperature? We're going to just take the numbers we have. So in this case, for the first one, we're going to have a 20 plus. So for the first one, we are going to have 20 plus 24, and then we divide it by 2. So we're going to have 20 plus 24, divide that by 2. So that is 44, which when we divide it by 2, we're going to get it as 22. So what is this? This is actually just an XI, but now this is a different setup. So if I come here and I say, okay, my temperature with I, which I'm calling it XI, here, for example, I come and say that, then that means that I'm going to put the first line to have 22, right? But we don't just write it like that and we move on. So to calculate the mean here will be different. We have mean equals to, remember the one for the ungrouped data was the sum of xi. But this one we are going to have the sum of xi like we did with the other one. But there's a different, or there's a catch. And our catch is that we must always multiply it with the value of the frequency individually, right? So we have to multiply it with the value of the frequency, and then we divide it by the total number of the frequency. So we can just call it n, or we can just say f tot. So we can calculate that with the total number of the frequency. So that is the difference which I have just highlighted for you, so that you can be able to do. Remember, we already have the total number of the frequency, which is 30, and then here we just multiply. So in context, what you're going to do is you're going to start by saying I have the xi, which is 22, multiply that by 2, and then you add the rest like that until you have your last one. So we can add them together like that, and our last one will be 40 plus 44. So let's write it down. 40 plus 44 divided by 2, which will be 84. So 84 divided by 2 will give us 42. So that will be a 42 multiplied by the frequency that is on with that. In this case, the frequency then will be 3. So it's 42 multiplied by 3, all divided by our total number, which is 30. So this is what we do as we go on to calculate this, and then you can therefore use your calculator to get to the answer, and that is one way of doing this. There is another way which you can, for example, as you can see there, I have just come to show you how it's calculated and how we get there, but they did not show the formula yet. That is why I have showed you the formula here, so that you don't get confused on where is it coming from, where did we get 44, and how is it calculated. So you can see that 44 is coming from 22 multiplied by 2, which gives us the 44 that they've highlighted here. Right. As well as when you say 42 multiplied by 3, you're going to have the 126. So you can see that they just have added them together and then they get to the answer. But literally, this is how you calculate this. And you just have to make sure that you can get it right. Then if you get this statement right, then to get your answer is easy, because then you can use your calculator. Just always remember that if you are not told to round to 1 or 2 decimal places, always round to 2 decimal places, unless they told you not to calculate or to round to 2 decimal places. Okay, so that is one part. Let's check the last one. How are we going to get that? Okay. The last one says, calculate the percentage of the days of which the temperature was at least 28 degrees. So that is what they are talking about. Where the data was at least 28 degrees, it just means that it can be 28 degrees or less. So to get that, what they did is they just added all the numbers, and then which is on that space was 28 degrees, and then divide by the total, which you already have, which is 30, and then multiply that by a total, by 100, right? To get a percent, we multiply by 100, and to remove a percent, we divide by 100. And the percentage, therefore, that was 80 degrees. So that is what you look at. So you calculate then, or you add the number of days that are given there, and then you get your total, which is 24. Then you get into the answer, which is where you can use your calculator, right? I guess you guys have seen that. and it makes a little bit of sense when you are working and looking at that. That was our 2017 question paper as it was indicated. I did tell you guys that we used 2017 question paper to respond or to show you how you can respond to the questions. Now this one is a 2018 question paper still from your DBE website, where you can actually go and take it and find many solutions or many questions from it as well. Here we are given a line graph. By now you know the types of graphs we have. A line graph, what it is that we need to analyze in the line graph is that they said it shows a test marks out of 10. So this we need to just circle it, because that means we have 10 points that we have to focus on. And then this was for grade 10. Then we can just go and then write or mark our point, which is already marked for us. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Every graph has to ground down, so that is why we have a ground where it goes down, right? So these our points which we are having. We can actually just go and create a table nicely before they even say anything, and then we can be able to write our coordinates together. So 0 and 0, 1 and 3, what is the next one? 2 and 4, and then we have 3 and 5, we have 4 and 3, just like that. So that's how you read them. 6 and 6, and we have 6 and 7, and then we have this one here, which have two things, which is 8 and 9, as you go like that, right? So you can go read your graph and then you move on. They said complete the frequency column in the table provided in the answer book. When you write your examination in grade 10, they will give you an answer book that have images or graphs and also their table, so that you don't have to waste time to draw the table. They always provide those so that you can save your time. So we have went and then we just re-put your table nicely. So that table had your marks. We just have to go and put the frequencies as the question have requested us to do. So you can see they wanted us to just go complete that column of a frequency from there, which is you take it from here. So if they have put 0, we just go put 0. They have put 1, we just go put at the 3, like that, like that. So that's what we went there. And then we provided the table in this manner. So this is your frequency table. You can see that all the points that we're busy clicking on it, they've actually have been put together there, and you guys can be able to use them. All right, that is how you do the first one. And they say how many learners wrote the test. How many learners wrote the test? They did tell us that this was marks out of 10. How many learners wrote the test? The number of frequency is the learners that wrote a test. So what you do is just you add your frequencies together, and the number you get, that means is the number of learners who literally have wrote the test. You see, you just add those frequency numbers that you have. Of course, you should have added the zeros, but 0, even if you add it, it does not make much of a difference. I'm sure we agree on that. So we can just add them together. Then we end up with the number of learners being 42. I guess you guys have got that and captured it. Let's check the other question. Says now calculate the range of the data. So now you need a range of the data. What you do is, after you have your data all together, how are you going to get your data in this point? When you get your data, you're just going to take the biggest number minus the smallest number. In this case, your biggest is 9 and your smallest is 1. So you're just going to take your 9 and you subtract the 1 for you to get the range to be 8. Very, very easy and straightforward. Again, calculate the mean. For this one, your mean is actually not as the one of grouped data. It's an individual data that has been translated from what you have there, right? Because you have seen that the max is 1, 1, 1. It's not interval. So if it was interval, that's where we say it's a group data. Then what you will do then is to calculate the mean. But as you calculate your mean, you always must just take your frequency and one number. So the only thing that is different here is that there's no middle number like we did with the midpoint of the grouped data. Here you take as raw as they are and then you just multiply them together and you add. Whereas in the previous question, you had to first take the median number of the temperature. In this case, for now we don't have the median, we just take the number as it is and we multiply it with the frequency, add them together to get to the answer. So that is the two different things that you have. Please don't make a mistake. Follow it in that manner for you to get it right. So you're going to say 1 multiplied by 3, 2 multiplied by 4. So you just use those numbers, multiply them together, and then you add them together after multiplying. And then after you add them together, then you divide by the total, which you just have said is 42. Then after that, you're going to get your answer then to be equals to 5.57. That is your mean value. This is another question paper that we have. And then the last question, therefore, was to calculate or determine the median of the data. So if you have a lot of data, as I said, you can use the method of a position, which is what we have here. Right here, we are using the position instead of us using the... So here we are using a position instead of us counting it out. So you can see we have used the position. We say n plus 1. What is the plus 1 doing? Just to control for us to find the position. So we say n plus 1 plus divide by 2. That is our median position, which in this case the position was 21.5. And then what we're going to do is we're going to our data set, and then we take where there's that point and we add the two numbers together, and then we divide it by 2 for us to get our median. So that's what you do basically. So you would have went to your data set, and then you look at it, and then you add in that manner. So you just count. If you're counting here, for example, I have 3, I have 5, so you keep on adding them from the top and the bottom. So this is 3, 7, like that, and then you add them like this. They go until you get where the 21.5 is, and that become your position. Right, so you add them or you count them from the bottom and from the top. You add them together, and then you get your position, and that's how you discuss or discover your position of the median. That is one way of finding the position of the answer. And then, since this data is 42, it's not 43. That's why we end up with the addition and divide by 2. Instead of us having one number like we did on the first data set that we have in question 1. Then after that, you can then divide to get your answer. Okay. So now after that, the next question was, how can I then draw my box and whisker? Box and whisker is drawn the similar way. If they ask you to draw a box and whisker, you just have to find your Q1. You have to find you have to find your minimum, Before Q1, we start with the minimum value, right? So you have to find your minimum value, which in this case, our minimum value is 1. And then you find your Q1, which is 3. Then you find your Q2, which you just calculated, it was 6. And then your Q3 is then 8. Then your maximum is 9, which is your biggest number. So if you find all those 5 numbers, you then will be able to get to the answer productively and very, very quick in that way. I'm very sure that with looking at all this, which looks like quite a lot, but it's a repetition. So let's recap. If you look at the first question, the questions that were asked, they are similar to the question on the second one and the third. So you were to find your median, you were to find your mean, you were to draw your box and whisker. So that means it's important for you to know your mean, it's important for you to know the range, the 5 number summaries, and how to plot your box and whisker for the ungrouped data. It's very important for you to do that. I have just given you one more solutions. I think I'm here to give solutions, okay? So one of the solutions you can have is that you can buy our book, which is X Kit Achieve, It is our study guide which can help you to understand many concepts. And before me forgetting, there's a book that I used a lot as a teacher, and I think I still love it. This book comes with a lot of free things in it, and this small one is very good for you to use as you practice. And this big one has a lot of content that you can be able to use as you go on and on and on with any concept that you need, in addition to the book that you always have, which is the Platinum, of course. This is what you already have. If you don't have these books, you can actually shop them online. You can have them in your phone, a laptop, everywhere. Or you can actually go, we're not the same. Some prefer hard copies. You can go to the store and then you get the hard copy for that. So you can actually just get these books. Before I forgot, I have two ask, not questions, but I think these are ask. One of the first request was that, when are we going to do Euclidean geometry? Do you guys want us to do Euclidean geometry soon? If yes, put it on the chat, put it on the vote. Let us know that if you want us to go for Euclidean geometry, we can try to make time and try to squeeze it somewhere in our space, and then we make sure that you learn Euclidean geometry. We just want to see how many of you would want us to do that. That was one of the asks which we are here to respond to. Okay? The second ask was, when are we going to do probability? I think this one was just on spot, because probability is actually our next lesson. That is what we have tried, or we want to try to cover. You can see here, it does say that our next lesson is going to be on probability. But while you are waiting for us, don't stay waiting. We have Maski, and Maski can help you to actually get the summaries of these topics that you want. Do you believe that? I promise you, if you can go there, save our number on WhatsApp for free, 072-091-0388. I'll repeat this one for now, because I think you guys need it more than ever. The number is 072-091-0388. Save Maski, ask Maski anything. As you want us to learn for the probability next week, or you want us to do Euclidean geometry next week, put that on the chat. Let's maybe put it on the vote and see which one we're going to get more people that want to do, and we'll prepare for that and help you guys to master this math. But while you are still waiting, ask Maski for the summaries. It will give you a quite nice explanation and summarized work like Teacher Tandy would have done, and to give you step-by-step ways of responding to the solutions. While you're waiting for us, there is your solution. I hope you guys have enjoyed this lesson as I did, and I'm always here to assist and help you. Just follow us on our socials and ask Maski, request for Teacher Tandy more, and we will be here with Maski TV and Maski Miller Learning to respond to your call. We are here to make maths start mathing and ensure that the math is seamlessly simple. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Now we enter our next exciting chapter with the launch of Maskiverse, an inspiring trio of innovations. Our vibrant playground for interactive learning and our own dedicated app, all coming together beautifully to deliver learning outcomes through technology.